Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by learning to develop yourself, your skills, your network, and more. I'm Brian, your host. All right, don't get mad at me, because one guy said what I'm about to tell you on Instagram, and he damn near lost all his followers. I actually tried to get him to come on the show because I agreed with him, but I don't know if he was nervous or didn't like the kind of things I talk about, or just really wanted to distance himself from this opinion he shared online, which is that you should probably work for free if you are a developer trying to get hired. I know this to be true. I've done this. I would never tell you to do something that I don't know works, because that would be unethical. And I pride myself on being a fairly ethical person. I hope I am. Hope I'm not some evil person in disguise, but you never know. We all think we're not the villain in the story, don't we? Anyway, I do think that you should consider working for. I do think there's a right way to go about it and a wrong way to go about it. Have you ever seen this online? People say, no one will hire me without experience, but I need experience to get hired. And it's like this chicken and egg situation, but also these same people often will not do work for free. They want a $100,000 a year job. They don't want to work for free. They didn't want to go to college. They wanted to learn for free. They basically want like the red carpet rolled out for them. And if I'm being harsh by saying that, I'm sorry. It just, that's the way I kind of see it. Because I think most of the people I met went to college. They went to some sort of program. They got mentorship, some way to acquire this very high paying skill. And then they have the skill. They went on internships. If you went to Stanford, I can almost guarantee you, if you're working at Google, you probably had an internship at Google. Was it paid? Very likely. I've done internships for companies I've worked at. These are not paid for the most part. Students are usually begging for these kinds of internships. And when they get them, they are worked. And some of them can be very, very difficult to do. And remember, these are paying college students. And I know if you're not in the US, this may sound like a wild and crazy idea. And maybe it sounds unethical already. I'm not saying you should do anything. I'm just saying what I would do and what I tell my own kids to do, which is what I'm telling you to do. So yes, you should work for free, but it's not quite free, because what you're getting in return for the work is credibility, validation. That's what you're really working for. Because if we break down what is the reason for doing free work, it's to get credibility where you don't have any. If you are a career changer, or you're coming from a very non-traditional background, which is what I came from, literally doing crime and all sorts of other terrible stuff that I've gotten into on other podcasts. Feel free to listen to it or not. Anyway, I didn't grow up with computers. I don't have a computer science degree. I've since worked at several companies around the San Francisco Bay Area, became an engineering manager, and now work as a senior developer at a startup. So how did I do that? How do other people I knew do that? How do people I've seen at Parsity do that? Parsity.io is the coding program that I own. So I've seen people do this, and I'm like, oh, there's something here. Right? There's something in this method, and I know it works, which is also why I have systematized this at Parsity. Basically, how can I find ways for people to work for free within reason in order to gain valuable experience? All free work is not created equal. Let me be clear on that. You don't want to work for free necessarily for your cousin or your uncle. And I've actually suggested that in previous shows, and I'm rethinking that. I don't honestly think that is the best advice. I think the spirit of what I said was correct, but in practice, no. I want to get very, very specific on the kinds of work you should be doing, how you should be doing it, and how you can leverage it in order to shorten your path from learning into hired. So a lot of people will tell you, oh, just do open source. That's the way to get noticed and hired. I think that is bad advice, just straight up. And I know people disagree with me, and that's fine. I know that it works for some people. I know that for the overwhelming majority of people, just quote unquote doing open source will not work. It is highly difficult for you to actually find a problem in an open source project that anybody cares about, that you can actually add and contribute to. The people that are often in these communities are really tight-knit. They've been doing this for years. They are responsible for the software that runs the world, essentially. And they're not just going to let somebody that just wants to get experience work on their software. And I think there was an incident recently where somebody like put a video out, it went viral about open source or something like that, or some course was like, here's how you do open source. Next thing you know, this open source repo got flooded with junk requests from people saying, I just want a job. I'm trying to do open source to get hired. That's a terrible reason to do open source. You should never do open source as a way to get hired, because open source software requires a lot of dedication. The people that are in it are usually emotionally invested in it, and they're not just doing it because they want a job. Open source is their job in many ways, and they do it out of love. So if you're just trying to get in there to open a PR, a pull request, and submit some junky code to say you did it, one, your manager or the person trying to hire you, not going to care. The recruiter might care if it's a really, really popular library that they may have heard of, and recruiters generally aren't very technical, so they're not going to care either. And yeah, it's just kind of like a lose-lose, in my opinion. If you really love open source, you should absolutely do it. I think it's an amazing thing to do. But if you're trying to do it with the intention of getting a job, probably a really bad use of your time. So what do? You walk down Main Street of your community. There's a person I interviewed on this show that I know in real life and through LinkedIn. His name is William Ray. He has a YouTube channel called The Tech Dad, and he gives really great no-nonsense advice for people looking to do freelance as a job. I'm not actually encouraging you to do this as a job necessarily. I'm encouraging you to do it as part of your search for finding a job. The reason why you want to do some free work is it will expose you to all the different aspects of writing code that aren't just writing code. Because writing code is a skill. I've said this before, and a smarter person, my buddy Zubin, who was on this show as well, he told me this line, which really stuck with me. Learning to code is the ticket to the dance. You have to get there. You have to go in. You have to actually participate in the dance. You want the girl or the guy or the circle, whatever you're into. You're not just going to get it by just going to the dance. The ticket just gets you there. You have to go in and do the thing, right? So learning to code is step 0. Doing some work for somebody is really step 1, where you really learn some things. So you should find a business on Main Street. What does that mean exactly? Literally, go out into your community. Go online. Look up the brick and mortar businesses which are around you, the dentist office, the pest control, the plumber, the electrician, the people that have service-based businesses like the massage person or whoever, the musician, the artist, the little store down the street. See what their website looks like. It's probably awful. It's probably really bad. And then here's the big part. When you go to them, when you reach out to them, you don't say, hey, you need a new website. Yours sucks. Let me do it for you. You give them some business criteria, some business logic. I'm a business owner. I hired somebody to do our website for Parsity. By the way, I can't wait for you to see it. It should be ready next month or in the next couple weeks, actually, and you get to see the amazing new website. Now, you might be thinking, why would you hire somebody to build a website for thousands of dollars when you could have just built it yourself? Well, I have a job. I have this podcast. I have kids, and I also have a job, right? So I have all these things going on at the same time between running a business and doing my regular job, my home, that I'm not the best person at this point to build a website. And also, I don't know a lot about search engine optimization. I don't know about the particular platform I wanted to build it on. So I could either learn all that on my own, or I could hire somebody to do it who's an expert. I'm going to hire the expert. I didn't hire the expert, by the way, to just build the site. I hired the expert who barely knows how to code because he understands the business that I'm in and how to create a website that I think is going to attract more people that I want to come into Parsity. It's going to better represent who we are as a company, what we're doing, and the kind of people we want to attract. Let's be honest. The Parsity website, if you go to parsity.io, not the best at this point. It's a little dated, shall we say. And I just haven't had time to clean it up. So I hired an expert to do it. So this expert, when me and him talked, he said, what I'm going to do is help you increase traffic. I'm going to create a system for you to easily be able to write articles on your site, which was a huge thing for me. I'm going to basically help you with your business. He wasn't selling me on a website. He was selling me on a way to enhance my business. This is what you need to do. No one cares that you're going to be using React or JavaScript or Vue or Angular or whatever. They could care less. These are just buzzwords to them. Most of them don't know what you're talking about, and you're going to do nothing but confuse them if you start talking technically. I can't tell you how annoying that is when you meet somebody and they want to sell you something and they just start saying a bunch of jargon. Like, well, it's going to be with React. It's a single page application using Next.js and TypeScript in this version. I'm like, well, I know what that means, but I don't care, to be honest with you. I just want something that looks good, runs well, and is going to help me get more business. And I'm a software developer. So imagine the person that you're trying to sell to that may have a business on Main Street, the dentist. They really don't care. What you want to approach them with is, here's how I can help your business. The website you have is suboptimal. And here's how you can run a test on that person's website and give them some cold, hard facts about what they should be doing. You can simply open up the browser tools and run a lighthouse test if you're using Chrome DevTools, or you can go to pagespeed.web.dev and get page speed insights from that person's URL. It'll help you understand what are some low-hanging fruit that you could optimize for them. This is going to require a little bit of research on your end and also a little bit of selling. You're going to have to go out there, email people that don't know who you are and say, hey, how would you like it if I helped you with your business? When you start from that angle, they're going to be more inclined to listen to what you have to say rather than, hey, I want to build you a new website. They're like, I don't want a new website, my friend. You don't want a new website. What you want is more traffic. You want more customers. You want to be taken more seriously. You want something that reflects your brand, right? Put on your sales hat and do a little bit of that. So doing this kind of work can be really, really useful, but you got to be careful because doing this will require, one, you having to go out there and really understand what does this person want. And when you ask somebody, what do you want? They're going to tell you everything. They're going to say, well, I want to have a forum here that does this. I want to have a tracker and I want to be able to take payments online and do all these things. And you're thinking, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. That's okay. This is also the nice thing about doing something for free. You're going to say, listen, I can deliver X within 30 days for you. Now, in return, what I'd like for you to do is do nothing but give me a recommendation on LinkedIn. That's it. That's literally all I want. I want a recommendation from you on LinkedIn if my work is up to par. And if you don't mind, I'd like a recommendation to any friends or family you may have that wouldn't mind me doing some work for them for maybe not free, for a reasonable price. Is that something we can agree to? Yeah, you know what? You're doing this for free for me. Why the heck not? You give them a nice firm handshake. You go freak out. And then maybe you write to me and tell me, hey, Brian, I did what you said. I got a customer. Now what do I do? And I'll answer them. I answer all the emails from people that are within reason and have a reasonable tone. For sure, I'll answer that email and give you a little bit of help. Or you just go to the tech dad, William Ray, and you can actually watch his videos and he'll give you quite a lot of good information about doing that. So this is important. You don't want to be stuck in this thing for too long. You want to have a very time-bound thing. You want to say, I'm going to deliver this thing. I'm going to give you a website that has these pages. This is out of scope. This is out of scope. This is out of scope. Out of scope meaning there's no way I can deliver this within the time frame. If you want to pay me later on, that's totally fine. What I'm willing to do though, if you can give me access to all your code base and things like that, I'm willing to go in there and make some of these optimizations, which I think will give you some better traction in your business. Are we in agreement? They'll say, yeah, sure, why not? What do I have to lose, right? Now, this is not going to be an easy sale. You'd be shocked how hard it is even giving away free work to people that could really use it. You have to be compelling. You have to meet the right people. And if you really are struggling, find a local person, find a family member or friend. I think that's totally fine. Ideally, somebody that has an LLC. That is important because you want them to have a little badge on their LinkedIn that identifies the company that they own, because that way you can put that badge on your LinkedIn. This is really where the quote unquote payment comes into play, right? You don't want to work for somebody that has like a blank profile picture on LinkedIn. That's not super helpful. What I did when I was trying to look for people that I could work with at Parsity, one of the things I did was go on Reddit, and I went to an entrepreneurs Reddit and I asked the people there, I said, hey, I own this coding program. I have a lot of really eager students that know full stack web dev. Anybody would like some help within reason, I'm happy to take on that work if and only if you have an LLC. Very few people got back to me and I didn't pursue them because honestly, at this point, I have more than enough free work for the students to do. And that's not something I tell everybody they should do. I just say, if it's something you want to do, we have it available. And that is my criteria for onboarding anybody that wants to work with Parsity. And if that is you, by the way, if you are an employer or own a business that is an LLC that does have a logo on LinkedIn and you would like some help within reason for things like bug fixes or full stack work, totally open to doing that. We've worked on quite a few apps, mobile, web, backend, front end, at Parsity, doing some amazing stuff. So it's a really cool thing that we do, and I like it a lot. So you can take that same approach. If you're not going to Parsity, you can do that on your own. You could go out there on sites like Reddit and find people and just have that same criteria and do the same work and say, yeah, I'd like a recommendation. That's my payment. This is going to be so much better because I can't tell you how many times as an engineering manager when I was looking through a stack of resumes and I would look at somebody's resume and at the top, I'd be like, okay, what did they do last? Wind turbine technician, cheeseburger flipper at McDonald's. Were they applying for the right job? What the heck is going on? What in Sam Hill? And then I'd look further down and it would say education, boot camp XYZ. I built a to-do generator. I'm like, oh, I get it. They went to some boot camp and they didn't do anything interesting and their job is whatever they're currently doing. And now they want me to take a chance on them next. And I'd throw that in the trash can, unfortunately. I'm being mean and I'm being a bit facetious here, but in all honesty, that is a lot of times what would happen. I'd be like, well, if you're competing with all these other people, like there's zero way I can give you a chance. That'd be completely unfair of me to do, right? I mean, could you imagine if somebody put down there, like, I'm a high-powered lawyer. Like, let's pretend they were, like, I'm a doctor. I'm a brain surgeon. And the top of their thing was brain surgeon on their resume. The top of their resume said brain surgeon. And I'm like, well, this is a full stack web developer position. So what am I supposed to do with this information? Like, does that mean that I'm supposed to trust you because you're a brain surgeon? If you walked into Starbucks and your most recent job was brain surgeon and they're in there trying to hire a lead cashier, they're going to look at you and say, I'm sure you're really smart, Mr. or Mrs. or Circle or whoever you are, but this is a lead cashier position and you are a brain surgeon. You cannot be lead cashier. You're unqualified. You say, what? I'm a brain surgeon. I went to the highest medical school in all the land, Harvard and Oxford, and I have all the degrees in a little cap and gown and all these things. You must call me doctor. And they say, get out of here, bro. You're not going to be working here. That guy probably should have worked for free as a barista for a while before going for that lead cashier job or something like that. These same rules apply. Everybody thinks tech is so different or so weird. Like, oh my God, I can't believe they won't hire me. I got a certificate and I took a Udemy course and now no one will pay me to write code $100,000. And I'm like, yes, there's an important step in between learning and getting hired. It's validation. It's getting some credibility. You can do this from free work. You can do this from building online. I think that's another excellent way to go about this too. If you're ethically, morally opposed to working for free, you could totally just build stuff in public. You can build your own thing. You can build something. Now, importantly, if you're building this thing, you must get users for it. Get some users for this thing. Make an LLC if you need to. Hire yourself as an employee. That is infinitely more credible and interesting than just saying, I built a to-do app. Now, I've done all these things, by the way. I've made my own startups, hired myself, and these were actual startups where we, built something, released it to the public, or didn't. And I worked on these things for years, in addition to doing my normal job. I actually used a couple of these as actual work experience because they were instances of work experience. And if I was starting again today, I would do the exact same thing. I worked for free for a buddy of mine when I was trying to get my first job, and that was really helpful. I did some really easy bootstrap stuff, just really janky websites that I was helping to build back in like the 2010s or whatever. So if nothing else, I hope I've given you a practical path to go from learning to code to hired via free work, and a good way to actually do this. Now, you can totally turn this into your own business. Again, the guy, William Ray, that I interviewed on this show, he stopped looking for work. He graduated from a boot camp. I could tell at the time he was starting to maybe regret his choice in many ways. He was feeling like, man, I did all this stuff. I have this online presence. I got this business I'm doing freelance, and I'm still not getting a job. He just wasn't getting the result he wanted. Similarly, a student at Parsity, which I've also had on this show, she was in a job which she didn't hate. She's like, I like my job. A lot of people really don't, and that's what leads them to programs like Parsity or Learning to Code, because they really want to escape their job. She didn't feel like that at all. She actually likes what she does, but she used what she learned at Parsity to build websites for other people and started making money on the side doing that. Now, William took this a step further and now does this full time, making more than he was making at his current job doing just this. Amazing. I love stories like that. And he's using the process, which I've outlined here. And if you want more in depth, I can't encourage you enough to go to a show. I'm not sponsored, by the way. By the way, just as a heads up, this show is not sponsored by anyone. Nobody sponsors this show. These are just completely my thoughts. And if I do have a sponsor at any given time, I will just let you know. I have people on here that, maybe writing books or selling things, but in general, I don't take payments or anything like that from people on the show. I just try to say what I think will actually help you and work out. Maybe that's me and maybe that's somebody else. I really hope that was helpful for you to hear. I hope you don't hate me for telling you should work for free for maybe 30 days. And if that sounds interesting to you, and if you do get a client and you're freaking out, you're saying, oh, Brian, I took your advice. I actually got my first client. Now I'm even more freaked out. The grass is always greener, my friend, and don't hesitate to reach out. I'm very serious about that. Take me up on that because I am more than willing to give you some insight about the lessons I've learned over the years from doing some free work and how to feel not too overwhelmed and to just go with it. You're just going to learn. It's a trial by fire situation. You're going to learn a lot doing it. You're going to make some mistakes. That's okay. Life's not going to end. It's a website. It's not brain surgery. So good luck out there. See you around. That'll do it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. To learn more about becoming a software engineer with us, then check out Parsity.io. If you're not quite ready for that, then jump into our dev30.xyz program, which is 30 days of working on your mindset, habits, and JavaScript skills. Totally worth it. See you next week.